Hello, college sports fans. Ooh, what a week that was, and what a week we've got coming up here in week 5. There's going to be a lot of crazy matchups, and I'm so excited because I've got 5 videos I'm going to be doing this week about week 5 here. I'm 13 and 13 on my predictions. I was feeling really good about them too. I was 500 heading into the week. I was like 11 and 11, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to come out a winner this week. I got 4 games. I felt really, really good about all of them. But Utah beat Oklahoma State, even though I knew Cam Rising wasn't going to play. I just had a good feeling about it. He never plays, even when he's slightly hurt. And the backup quarterback was in, and Oklahoma State was just terrible, and then they still won. And then USC had Michigan right there. I thought for sure I was going to end up right on that one, and the Wolverines managed to win a classic. So, oh well, I went 2 for 2. I'm 13 for 13, but here's the thing. This week, I've got 5 videos coming out. So, no matter what happens, I'm either going to end up with a winning record or a losing record, no matter what, by the end of this weekend. So, this is the first one right here. I'm super excited for this Big Ten matchup. Number 19, Illinois at number 9, Penn State. Incredible matchup. Illinois has turned out to be very good so far this season. We looked at their schedule, at the beginning of the season, thinking, okay, they got to play Kansas. They got to play Nebraska. How are those 2 games going to go? And well, Illinois managed to win both of them. Very close. They only beat Kansas 23-17. And the Jayhawks have turned out not to be quite as good as many people thought they would be this season. And then Nebraska on the road, the Huskers were an 8.5-point favorite. I didn't end up covering that game, but I'm glad I didn't because I probably would have picked Nebraska to win if I'm just being honest about it. And Illinois went in there, won the game. What an epic matchup that was. But they have a legit quarterback, Luke Altmaier, for the first time in what feels like a long time, and a lot of playmakers with him. So before I get into whether Illinois can actually beat Penn State, let me talk about just a little bit of the history of this matchup. The Nittany Lions lead the all-time series 21-6. So very lopsided. They met a few times in their history before Penn State officially joined the Big Ten. But ever since the Nittany Lions have joined the Big Ten Conference, they've played almost every year, roughly. And then when the league expanded and they created divisions, then that made their matchups a little bit, less likely. But now the divisions are gone. Now they play each other relatively frequently, and Penn State leads the all-time series 21-6. But the last time Illinois came into State College, Pennsylvania, they won in 9 overtimes. 9. It was a crazy 20-18 game, 9 overtimes. This was right after the rule had just been created because this was 2022, the rule had just been put in place where if you get past the second overtime, from the third overtime onward, it's just alternating 2-point conversions. And it ended up going to 9 overtimes. It was almost comical. But ultimately, Illinois came out, won that game, and that was one of the most shocking games of the season last year. Now Brett Bielema with the Illini is looking for another signature upset over Penn State, but this one I think is going to be a little bit trickier. But let's go over what the Illini have and what they have coming up. So the Illini still have a relatively difficult schedule ahead, especially as this month still continues to go on. They host number 12 Michigan, and then they're on the road against number 8 Oregon. Both of those are very likely losses also. What you get out of that in the last month of the season, last 4 games, all those teams are all not that great. I'm pretty sure it's Minnesota, Rutgers, obviously Northwestern is at the end there. So all very winnable games based on how Illinois has played so far. I think Purdue is the other team. So not a hard schedule to finish the last 4 games. But Luke Altmaier, he has been brilliant at quarterback. Again, he used to be backup quarterback at Ole Miss. So, he had a lot of potential there. He had a lot of good coaching from Lane Kiffin as well. 71% completion, 862 yards, 10 touchdown passes, no interceptions. He also has a rushing touchdown, and he has fumbled the ball away once. So that's just one turnover. Other than that, though, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant passing. It's weird to see Illinois be such an effective passing team, but that is just how good Luke Altmaier has been. And then Caden Fagan has been the main running back, 242 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's got 4.5 yards per carry. So not bad at all. He's adding in a little bit of balance to this Illinois team. And Pat Bryant, he has been a brilliant wide receiver. 309 yards, and get this, 6 touchdown receptions. Zachary Franklin, the former UTSA, superstar receiver, and then for these last couple of years has been with Illinois. He's got 243 yards. So he's not slacking either. So those two receivers, very, very good. On defense, they've been very solid as well. Xavier Scott has 18 tackles, 3 interceptions, and a pick six on the season. So Xavier Scott has been an under the radar, really talented defensive player. Dennis Briggs has also been really good on the defensive line. And Gabe Jacobs and Dylan Rosiak have been effective linebackers, and they're going to be tested as well, for sure. They're going to be tested against the Penn State ground game that we're going to get into right now. The Penn State Nittany Lions, let's just talk about them so far this season. Uh, they have way better numbers than Illinois across the board. Statistically, look at every single measure: offense, defense. Heck, you could even say they have the better head coach in James Franklin. Better numbers across the board than Illinois, but they've also had an easier schedule. Again, I mentioned Illinois had to play Kansas, who turned out not to be as great, but still, Kansas is a better team than pretty much all the teams Penn State has played so far. They had to play Kansas, beat them. They had to go on the road and beat Nebraska. But Penn State, they've had a super, super easy schedule so far. And the concerning thing is that they really, really struggled with Bowling Green State a couple of weeks ago. That one came down to the wire at home, and they ended up winning in a thriller. Now, that being said about Bowling Green State, I just want to stay on this point real quick. Last weekend, Bowling Green State played Texas A&M on the road and almost upset the Aggies as well. The Aggies only won that game 26-20. So I'm just saying, when it comes to Bowling Green State, I think they actually are one of the best teams in the MAC. To me, it's them and Toledo, not so much Northern Illinois after what happened this past weekend against Buffalo. I think it's really between Toledo and Bowling Green State, and then maybe Miami, Ohio, and Northern Illinois could make things interesting in the MAC. But Bowling Green State, I think, is a legit under the radar team with an exciting offense. So they've tested a couple of tough teams already. And anyways, let's get to Penn State's team and how well they've actually been playing. Drew Aller has been a much better quarterback so far this season than he was last year, which is to be expected. Last year, he was just a freshman. He had tons of hype. Played actually decently well against really bad teams, and then, of course, really, really struggled against Ohio State and Michigan and Ole Miss. The really great teams Penn State played last year, Aller really, really struggled. But against the really bad teams, he played pretty good. And so far, against a few really bad teams, he's done really, really well, and he's done better than he has last season. 71% completion, 729 yards, 8 touchdown passes, just 1 interception, plus 77 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. So his numbers very similar to that of Luke Altmaier. They're both coming into this game with some good stats. And then the running back duo of Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen is still there, and Singleton has really taken over out of the two as the main running back. He's got 314 yards, a pair of rushing touchdowns, and a pair of receiving touchdowns. And Katron Allen, he's got 187 yards on the ground, but he does have a 20-yard receiving touchdown. And then you look at the receiving core. It's been pretty solid for Penn State. Tight end Tyler Warren, 226 yards, 2 touchdowns. Wide receiver Harrison Wallace, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns. How about this? Wide receiver Omari Evans has come out of nowhere. I was really thinking that transfer from Ohio State, Julian Fleming, was going to be better in this offense, but really, it's been Omari Evans, 205 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then you look at the defense too. Safety Jalen Reed, 22 tackles. He's got a fumble recovery. Abdul Carter, who's going to be playing on Sundays pretty soon, has 12 tackles and a sack. So their defense at pretty much all the levels, defensive line, linebacker core, and the secondary has been really, really good, but it has been against weak competition. Now, with all that being said, with the history out of the way, with how well these two teams have been playing, I do think Illinois is a legitimately really good team because we've seen them beat other good teams. Penn State's a lot better on paper with the players that they have. They are a lot better than Kansas and a lot better than Nebraska as well. Penn State has been brilliant at stopping the run, which Illinois has not had as a strength this season, which could make the Fighting Illini one dimensional in this game. And yet, that secondary, again, with guys like Jalen Reed that I just mentioned, is still very, very, very good. And James Franklin knows how to coach a great defense. I believe Altmaier will do solid in this game, but the fact that it's on the road against the most elite team that they've played so far this season at night, it's just tough for me to pick against Penn State in that scenario, and I think the Nittany Lions just have way too much talent. Illinois, I think, still is a solid team, and I think they're going to have potentially 8 wins this season, maybe even 9 wins, but I don't think they are going to win this game. I think Penn State wins this one by 10. All right, thank you guys so much for watching the College Sports Superfan. We got several more videos coming out, including the Bunley game of the week, which I think you can guess which game that one is. It's a top 5 matchup. That's what I'll say about that. And the fan game of the week. You can vote in the poll right now. Currently, it's looking like it's going to be Texas A&M versus Arkansas for the Southwest Classic, but there's still a little bit of time to vote before I come out with that video probably on Friday, which is the fan game of the week. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and please continue to support the College Sports Superfan.